Hello, UGA Sports YouTube page. I'm Dane Young. That's Roddy Nabolsi, and that is Blaine Gilmer. Blaine's actually checking out Oscar Delp at a high school game, but that's not what we're here to talk to you about because most of you want to know what the heck is going on with Georgia's quarterback situation. And Roddy, the dog vent, has been active today ever since your 3-2-1 report happened. So I'm tossing it straight over to you. What happened in the 3-2-1 report? What are you hearing? The words that no one wants to hear on the vent. What is Roddy hearing?
Well, here's the thing. It's not so much that, it's been fun watching, I guess, since about 5 o'clock this afternoon, all these breaking news stories. JT Daniels has an issue with his oblique. Breaking news, he may not play. Breaking news, he's not going to play. Breaking news, Carson Beck's going to be the starter. Breaking news, maybe not. It's like, Jesus, folks. And I know to a lot of people who are getting off work, they didn't know that there was anything wrong with JT Daniels. If you're not a member of the dog vent, you may not have known it for the past few days. We reported it a few days ago. We broke the news that there was an issue, but we did tell people, look, he's going to go play or he's going to practice, And this is the first time a lot of people are hearing about this. And so I'm seeing a lot of aggregation sites put out breaking, and I just kind of, sometimes you get beat on the news, but by 3 days, come on. So the news is, JT Daniels has an issue. And Blaine, tell me what it's like. You've been a quarterback, you've coached quarterbacks, you've been a coach. When we say he's got a bad oblique, can you kind of explain what that is to folks?
Yeah, just in your back, when you're having to torque it all, when you're trying to put the zip on the ball, fit it into tight windows, that can really affect you. Obviously I didn't play anywhere near the level that JT Daniels is playing at or trying to play through. But anytime you've got any kind of injury to the back or core at a quarterback, it just is really going to hamper your ability to get the ball not only down the field, but like I said, in those tight windows. And that's something that Georgia's going to need against a good, well-coached team in UAB.
No, that makes perfect sense. And
obviously I didn't play anywhere near the level.
Sorry about that. So you have that issue where guys getting having a hard time. I shouldn't say hard time, but he could make it worse by going out there and playing today, or playing tomorrow. So why aggravate it? Why make it bad? But here's the thing. We were told he was going to practice Tuesday and Wednesday, and he did. He was a little bit limited. He didn't throw 40, 50 yards downfield all practice, because at that point you're like, look, you need rest. You need to let it, I won't say soft, you need to let it heal. So he's not chucking it downfield. And that's when we got to speak to a couple players after practice on Wednesday, and they confirmed that. We told, yes, he was at practice Wednesday. Okay, that's what our report was. He split reps with Carson Beck, who, the quarterback out of Jacksonville, Kirby Smart, earlier in the week had been asked point blank, hey, who's your backup quarterback? And he said, Carson Beck's our backup guy. Here's where things get sideways, Dane, and this is what drives people crazy. And the number one question I'm seeing on the board is, if JT Daniels is out, then Carson Beck's the guy. We automatically assume that the number 2 guy moves up when the number 1 guy is unavailable. But what people don't understand is the number 2 guy is the number 2 guy at the time you ask the coach. If Blaine and I were in a quarterback battle and I had a good Monday, and you ask our coach on Monday, who's the number 1 guy? He's like, Roddy's our number 1 guy. But guess what? Tuesday afternoon, Blaine's coming gunning for my ass. He's going to come and whoop me. And if you ask the coach, hey, who's your number 2 today? On Tuesday, it may be Blaine. So things change. So just because someone was set that day, definitively that day, doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever. Remember, Kirby Smart says every position is up for grabs. You have to win your position every day. Keep the main thing, get comfortable being uncomfortable, all the different cliches the coaches use. But there is one that is legitimate, and that they evaluate tape every day. Every day they go and they evaluate the tape, and guys move up and guys move down. Point being, everyone also took the information that if JT Daniels and Carson Beck were the ones splitting the reps, then how could you play Stetson Bennett? Because they're splitting the reps. What we don't know is how well Carson Beck fared when he was splitting the reps. What if he sucked?
Well, and see, I think that's where some of this is coming from too, is that in fall camp at some of the scrimmages, some people were reporting that Beck was playing well enough to be taking some of those first team snaps from JT Daniels then. But we heard different things. Like that second scrimmage in particular, some people said, oh, well, Carson Beck just wowed the place. And the people that we talked to said he wasn't that good that day. Yeah. And so there's some different opinions on Carson Beck. I'll put it lightly to say that. Frankly, I think that Georgia thinks that you're not trying to beat Alabama this weekend. You're trying to beat UAB. Who gives you the best chance to beat UAB? Probably a quarterback that has a lot more experience, a quarterback that without all the weapons that are not there has proven that he can win games against non-super elite teams. And he had a lead against halftime, against those. To me, even if you flip the script and you say, I'm trying to compete with an Alabama or an Ohio State and build toward that now, Carson Beck wouldn't be the call for that either. For me, I would throw Brock out there and just be like, here's where we're at. Let's build up our next guy. But look, I get that that's not even the purview right now. This is a Stetson or a Carson behind JT Daniels, and they're trying to get to when JT's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, they're 100% right. You're not trying to beat Alabama, but that's what they think that this game should be a tune-up for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Blaine, but the impression I got was this is a game you need to develop the quarterbacks. And what if, JT Daniels, remember this guy who was hurt when he came to UGA, he's hurt again. Now, remember, he was hurt the first time, his ACL thing, he's recovering, but here's a guy who's banged up a little bit. Georgia has a long history of quarterbacks getting injured, 8 plays into the season. And 2017, Jacob Eason goes down. We have to throw Fromm at Notre Dame the following week. So, but the idea is, well, if you're going to be prepared for that, the idea is already in that you can't beat Alabama with Stetson Bennett. And I say that's bullshit. Because Stetson Bennett was up had 24 points and a lead on Alabama last year, and nobody else did. He did what nobody else could do last year. Now, did it work out in the second half? No. But he also beat a bunch of SEC teams, 2 of them that were ranked. And I'm not trying to be Stetson Bennett's cheerleader, but I'm like, the garbage narrative that he's too short. He's the same height as Bryson Young. What do give the kid a chance. And if he wasn't out there on Tuesday and Wednesday throwing with the ones, then maybe he's a little rusty. Maybe give me that as a rationale why you don't play him. But again, we don't know how Carson looked with the ones. He may have been fantastic, may have blown it up. But if he had, I don't think we would have heard any rumblings about anything else if Carson Beck had looked fantastic with the number ones. Am I wrong, Blaine?
No, I think you're totally right. But I think people, my wife and I were watching it was Chicago Med this week, right? We were watching on Netflix, and a guy couldn't get a diagnosis. He's like, I can't figure out what's going on. And the doctor he was consulting with said, always check the history, always go back to their history. Well, let's go back to Kirby Smart's history. Okay. What is Kirby Smart going to do? He's going to go with the guy that he absolutely trusts, that won't put Georgia in peril, that won't, not the guy that maybe has the most high ceiling, but the guy that he knows is going to operate his system like clockwork. And Stetson Bennett is going to be able to do that. There's a good likelihood they run the ball 40 times, on Saturday, and Stetson Bennett can hand the ball off just as good as Carson Beck can. And let's face it, the guy can spin it. I mean, he was able to throw it well last year, even for his shortcomings, and no pun intended, in terms of height and things like that. But, Stetson Bennett is somebody that they trust.
Now, that said, this is going to be one of those decisions in the era of the transfer portal that has tremors after it, because I can't imagine Carson Beck working as hard as he has for the last year. If JT Daniels is not playing, which that's what we all believe to be the case, if Carson Beck's not the guy to go out there after that, I don't know what he sees for his future at Georgia at that point. And, that's not so like gloom and doom, but we saw people on the dog man saying, I wouldn't blame him if he left Georgia after that, because it shows that there's not belief in his ability to be able to help the team when they need him. because there aren't going to be many more dire circumstances than JT Daniels not there. And then you look at the quarterback room and you're like, all right, Georgia still does not have what it needs to have at quarterback to be able to survive a season, it looks like.
Well, if he's going to quit after the first real setback in his career at UGA, then let him. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's a situation where he didn't get spring camp when he came to UGA. He didn't get the summer workouts. He had a year of COVID. And we had people that were telling us, why did Georgia waste a scholarship on this kid when they go to practice? They're like, he's terrible. He got spring, he got summer, he got all the summer workouts. And the story we kept hearing is, well, wow, this guy is vastly improved. He's going to continue to get better. Now, here's a situation where he's going up against the guy who played Baker Mayfield in the scout team in Georgia's 2017 run. You know, the guy who is – the team rallies around this guy. He is a senior leader. He came back for this year, could have transferred again, and gives you something. If he's like, well, if I can't beat out Stetson, then I'm just going to go somewhere else. Well, then I'm sorry. You know,
you can look at it that way, but you can also say, hey, Georgia picked 4 quarterbacks over him last year, and then now Georgia would pick 2 quarterbacks over him this year. Like that's not a good feeling for anyone that is told, hey, you're right there on the doorstep.
Yeah, but then that also tells you they picked 6 quarterbacks over him. Are the coaches just idiots? Or do you keep a guy around who can't get it done?
I'm just saying from his perspective. From anything that I've heard,
guys are going to transfer, and then you'll just be stuck with Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton. That'll be terrible. My point being, again, I like the kid. I'm just saying this. If he wants to transfer, Georgia fans have to stop being so damn scared of the transfer portal. You know, it's there. Quarterbacks transfer all the time. All the guys that were on the Heisman Trophy list the last few years, half of them have transfers from other schools. Guys move around all the time. It's going to continue to happen, especially at the quarterback position. But here's the thing. If he went out there and he lit it up with the number 1 offense, and he is certain, absolutely damned certain, that he is the best quarterback out there, and that Todd Monken's making a mistake, and Kirby Smart's making a mistake, and they're all making a mistake. Buster Faulkner's making – every guy that has any inkling on the offense, they all think that he thinks they're all making a mistake, then they can transfer. But if he went out there and didn't get it done, and he watched the tape because they break down film after each practice, and he goes, I didn't get it. Then he won't transfer because he knows he needs to continue to fight. So – Blaine, that's the big part. We don't know about any of this, and that's why I'm saying people keep saying, why would you start Stetson Bennett? Like, we don't know because Kirby shut down practice and we have no idea what's going on in there.
Well, there's that collective fear. But Blaine, I wanted to ask you, if Stetson Bennett is 4 inches taller, is this narrative different? Like, is that what one of the issues is?
Oh yeah, Georgia. I think Georgia fans, especially people on the vent, are just scared to death of the fact that he's going to get a pass batted down. And let's say on the first drive, Stetson Bennett drops back and a pass does get batted down. The dog vent may combust. I mean, it may be totally gone after we may have to rebuild it, Roddy, from ground up because it's going to blow up. But I'm just telling you,
we lived through Quincy Carter, so we'll handle this.
People are worried about that, but you're exactly right, Dane. Stetson Bennett has the ability. He understands defenses. He knows where to go with the football. At times, he was a little inaccurate last year. If he's able to improve the accuracy, Stetson Bennett's a quality quarterback. It's just the fact that he's small. That's the reason he didn't get heavily recruited out of high school. It wasn't because of his numbers. You go back and look at what he did in high school. The dude was just absolutely balling out. I mean, he played very, very well. And was a bona fide star, went to these camps and people like, why is this guy not getting recruited? Well, it's because he's, maybe 5'9", 5'10". So Stetson Bennett's a smaller guy, but like you said, Roddy, there are other small quarterbacks that are now changing that narrative. And, we'll see if Stetson's the guy, what he can do this Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a bum rap, and I was doing this for about a year. Every time a quarterback threw a pass and it was batted down because somebody was in a passing lane, I'd always tweet out, maybe that quarterback's too short. And yeah, it was me obviously trolling Twitter, but I seem to remember a really tall quarterback for Clemson about 4, 5, 6 days ago went to throw a pass and Devontae Wyatt knocked it back like he was Karch Karai on the 96 volleyball team, just shut it down. And I almost whipped out my phone right there on the spot and said, well, I guess the DJ Unga Alele is too short to play quarterback. Passes get batted down. Well, there's more. He gets more batted down. I don't care. Don't give me that. Things happen. 5'11" versus 6'2", 3 inches. Your arm's a little bit longer. When Devontae Wyatt jumps in the air, or Jordan Davis does, or one of those guys, do you think that 4 inches makes the hugest difference?
Well, we should just mention the little underlying current here of the panic of Georgia fans. There was a mistrust that Kirby Smart and his team can manage the quarterback situation correctly. And that does go back to 2018 and everything that happened with that. And look, there's some revisionist history that can go any way you want it to there. I think that both sides have a point on that one. I also don't know that that's very relevant to this particular roster because there is not a slam dunk. This is what you do to fix the quarterback deal this year. And probably both situations are better that year than this particular one. Even if you look at JT Daniels in his last 8 quarters, Georgia's offense has 12 points. Now, yeah, I mean, there were field goals that got him in range, but like they've gone against 2 really good defenses and Georgia's won with special teams and its defense. So
you hate JT Daniels. Just admit it.
I don't hate any of these guys.
But it's fact. You're right.
But look, my theory.
12 points? Is that really it?
I mean, offensively, yeah. Because, you don't count the 1 extra point they got against Cincinnati, and then it was a pick 6 against Clemson. So,
hey, Dane, nobody can do it by themselves. And to that point, I'm going to have to leave y'all and go see. Georgia's trying to bring in Oscar Delp. He's about to go kick off. But, if you get more guys like that, you see what Brock Bowers did as a true freshman, Oscar Delp could have the same kind of impact. So I'm going to go watch him play, but enjoy talking about quarterbacks with you guys.
Thanks. See you, Blaine.
Thanks, Blaine. See you, buddy.
See,
Blaine's doing work. Me and you were sitting at home. Blaine's working right now.
Well, I was one of my buddies reached out to me and says, hey, they're talking about you on these other websites. And I'm like, well, dude, I gave an opinion. I gave a prediction. Was it based on some insider information? I don't know. Just saying I gave a prediction about it. I don't come out with my prediction that Stetson Bennett's going to start. It's not designed to get people talking about us on other sites. That's not the point, because if I'm wrong, then I look like an idiot. Why would I make an incorrect prediction or something I know is incorrect?
You look like more of an idiot.
It's like, hey, let's spread this far and wide and tell everybody this guy's a damn moron. So I don't. And again, we don't get paid per click. So everybody that clicks on our site, that we don't get a penny or a nickel or whatever every time anybody does that. We are a subscription site, and we try to give people our best analysis, our best film breakdowns, our best breaking news, and I don't say we give our best opinion. We give our best guess. We try to be logical in our assumptions. We're never doing it for a clickbait reason, because clickbait doesn't pay our bills. We don't get paid for advertising. We get paid through subscriptions. And the great way to lose a bunch of subscribers is to tell them a bunch of garbage, to give hot takes, and that's dumb. So they were talking about us everywhere, but now it seems like a lot of people are kind of coming to our island, where I was out there saying, look, I think Stetson Bennett's going to get the start. That's my prediction. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of people are kind of talking that same way.
Well, and even as a whole, I've been pretty pessimistic on Georgia's quarterback situation for a couple of years now, and that's because it hasn't been an exciting, thrilling offense that I think can win a national championship, which is the ultimate goal. My personal opinion is that if you don't have the quarterback situation figured out, you're not going to win a title. And so you keep swinging until you find the guy that can get you there. I'm not sold that JT Daniels is that guy for Georgia, and I may be alone on that island. We'll see if that's true one day. He managed the offense well against Clemson, and I think it was in the YouTube chat, and it's already scrolled past, and so I don't know who asked it, but someone asked, was he injured during that game, and was that one reason that the offense was more limited and he got the ball out of his hands so quickly?
He was injured in the game, but that was not the reason they got rid of it. The reason JT Daniels, and again, if it's really bad, they could have brought in somebody else. So it's not debilitating. It's not the end of the world. But the plan going into that game was Clemson is going to affect the passer. They are going to come after him. The pass rush is going to be brutal. Georgia was worried about protecting the quarterback. In my notorious column the week before, I wrote that whichever offensive line can, protect the quarterback the most will likely win. And Georgia gave up 1 sack and Clemson gave up 7. So the plan was get the ball quickly, grab it and throw it, catch and release, get rid of the ball quickly because you don't know how much the protection is going to hold up, which was exacerbated by the fact that in the first series, you lost Tate Ratledge, your 5-star right guard, and you had to bring in Warren Erickson, who had just got his hand out of a cast. So he's basically playing the position one-handed. So that was the reason. It didn't get better with the oblique issue. But if you saw JT Daniels at the end of the game, he's pumping his fist, he's making throws. So it wasn't people say, oh, this injury happened back in a scrimmage. That too is garbage. That did not happen back in the second scrimmage of the year. It wasn't something they've been trying to hide. It happened in the game, strained his oblique, and now they need to let him rest it. So that's the way. But I do want to touch on the fact that I think you're right, Dane, and there are a lot of people who just don't trust the Georgia coaches when it comes to quarterbacks. And fair or foul, I won't get into that. But I think the biggest knock on Stetson Bennett is he was the quarterback in Georgia's 2 losses. He was the quarterback going into Alabama, gives them a lead, they lose in the second half. Blame the quarterback, especially when they were balls batted down. 10,000 other problems in that game, but blame the quarterback, which you always do. JT Daniels comes in, and go back to the Florida game. Georgia gets up to a 14-point lead, big run by Zeus. Georgia comes flying down the field with Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett throws a great pass to Marcus Rosemy-Jack-Saint. Marcus Rosemy-Jack-Saint breaks his ankle. Stetson gets planted in the dirt, separates his shoulder. Nobody knows that. And continues to play in the game and then just can't get it done because
we saw his discomfort. So, we knew that he was battling through an injury, but we didn't know the severity.
But nobody knew the severity. It's like, oh, that had to hurt. But he's still in there. He can't get it done. They put in Dwan Mathis. Dwan can't get it done. Georgia can't stop the wheel route. Their receivers running wide open all over the place, but a gimpy Stetson Bennett can't do it, and an inaccurate Dwan Mathis can't get it done. There's no Jordan Davis. There's no George Pickens. There's no Lewis Seen who goes out with a targeting. There's guys missing all over that thing. Georgia loses a tough game. Who do you blame? Quarterback. So the idea is this is the season with the way this schedule lines up. Georgia should win the national title, or at least play for it. And I think a lot of people have decided Georgia, there's a ceiling with Stetson Bennett because he can only give you so much. He can't beat the Floridas. He can't beat the Alabamas. No one talks about the fact that you gave up 40-plus points in both those games.
Well, no one also mentions the fact that Georgia probably loses to Arkansas without him last year in the first game of the season.
And Auburn and probably Tennessee and everybody else, but that's neither here nor there. You didn't win all those games with him. He saved your ass, but no one wants to give him that credit because he's too short. So now we're going with the Carson Beck, a guy that a lot of people or the attention turns to Carson Beck because folks think they have a read on what Stetson Bennett can do. He can't win you the big game. Okay. But if you want to win the big game, you want to win the title this year, maybe if you can't do it with JT Daniels, let's get, and you see all the comments, get Carson Beck ready in this game. This is a great game to develop Carson Beck. I'm telling you folks, this team that Georgia's facing is not your typical.
They're a good team.
This year, they're probably better than Vandy.
There's a chance that UAB would be the 4th best team in the SEC East. Yeah. Something like that.
Not better than Florida, but definitely pushing better than Vandy and South Carolina, probably.
And Tennessee, maybe in that territory.
Tennessee, yeah. So basically you're pushing, are you better than Kentucky? No, probably not. Better than Missouri? Right in that area. So this is a good team, and you don't have time to develop a quarterback. You need to beat these guys. They have 2 great quarterbacks. They have a ridiculous secondary. So, and they're big in the trenches. They got some boys over there that are going to give you everything you want. Don't chance this game. This isn't a developed game. This isn't, the Sisters of Mercy, a JV squad that you're playing out there. This is a real football team, and they will kick you in the real mouth if you go out there and try to screw around with him. So I think people are like, well, we know what JT Daniels can do because we saw how well he did at the end of the year. You saw how well JT Daniels did against bad teams. And then when he played two good defenses, they did score a lot of points. He also had back Jordan Davis and George Pickens.
Yeah, and I will say that in the Peach Bowl, Georgia moved the ball. They just didn't score points. So I say all this about 12 points in 8 quarters. Georgia moved the ball, but that was also with George Pickens and Darnell Washington, both of which are not playing right now. And so it's a tough road to hoe for any Georgia quarterback right now because other than these running backs, I mean, who do you get the ball to?
This is why I was so down on Georgia's chances against Clemson last week, because basically I saw a very good Clemson offense. I mean, a very good Clemson defense and a Georgia offense that was trying to find its way. It was still moving players around on the offensive line. And you were without Arik Gilbert, a 5-star tight end. You were without Darnell Washington, another 5-star tight end. You were without George Pickens, your 5-star wide receiver. You don't have anybody else on the roster like George Pickens. Clemson's playing the 2 high safeties. You still throw to George Pickens when there's 2 high safeties. You don't do that to anybody else. So then you lost Tate Ratledge. You have 4 5-stars on the bench. That is a tough, like you said, tough road to hoe for anybody. So I know a lot of people, it's next man up. You can do next man up, but what if the next man up is not as good as the guy that left? And then do that 5-6 times. Georgia was going up against that Clemson defense with 2, at least one walk-on in Ladd McConkey, a former walk-on in Jalen Johnson, true freshman and Brock Bowers, a injured tight end in John Fitzpatrick. This guy had knee and ankle issues.
Played his ass off.
I mean, knee and foot issues. So I'm like, there's a lot going on here. Cedric Van Pran playing center for the first time ever. You can see why I was like, I don't think Georgia's going to win this game. But by the end of the season, this team's going to be a bunch of badasses. Well, now you won that game. You've got that win in your pocket. You can afford to slip up somewhere along the way because you're like, hey, we got to win over the perennial playoff team in Clemson. But I don't think you should. I think you should win this game. But again, what if you were to lose this one? What if you were to lose one of these other ones because you're trying to develop a quarterback? You don't have time for that. You got to win these games. And I think
that's the flaw in my logic, right? So my logic saying groom the next quarterback until you have it. Well, the flaw is, well, if you lose to a UAB along the way, if it goes like south really quickly, that's the value of someone like a Stetson Bennett. I do want to open it up to, if anyone has questions for us, I'll be looking over here on the YouTube chat and we'll answer those for you about Georgia's quarterback situation. As we know it, JT Daniels not expected to play because of his oblique injury against UAB. Roddy reported on UGAsports.com first today that he predicted Stetson Bennett would be the starter. At first, I would say the wave online said, oh, no, you're an idiot. It's going to be Carson Beck. And in the last hour or two, we've seen that begin to shift in a little bit of a different way. Here is a question from John Lang. He says, who would you take, a healthy JT or a Stetson? I think the coaches have been obvious that would be a healthy JT. That's why he was the starting quarterback. So that's the answer. I'm going to trust what they see more than I do with my own eyes. Overall, in terms of like an explosive offense, I'd probably agree with that. But that's such a hypothetical right now because if you have an oblique injury, you can't rear back to throw the ball down the field. Well,
and also you got to think about on these RPOs and, how often are you actually going to run them? What happens to the run game? The backside pressure. If the quarterback is no threat to run, that guy has zero. He can just pin his ears back and come. It kills the run game not to have a quarterback with mobility. It just makes it such a nightmare. So again, I'm not saying I would take Stetson Bennett over JT Daniels, but I'm saying a quarterback with mobility really, really opens up the run game.
What we are saying is that, well, I'm not going to speak for you. What I'm saying is I would take Stetson Bennett over Carson Beck, and it looks like the coaches agree.
Yeah, that's my point. And again, I've got nothing against Carson Beck. Seems to be a great young man. I was thrilled to hear these reports about him completely changing it around, going through spring and being, we asked Todd Monken, who was your number 2 quarterback at the end of spring? He's like, Carson Beck. Like, that's great, because all we heard last year was this kid is out of his depth. And which makes sense, because he came to Georgia, never got spring practice, never got summer worth of damn, hardly got any. And in fall there, it's a fireman's drill, because, hey, we got Jamie Newman. Now we don't. We got Dwan Mathis. Now we don't. Now we got Stetson Bennett. Carson's like, what the hell? But again, he wasn't ready. Now that he is, and he's improved. That's right now. I'm with you. If I'm developing a quarterback, I'm putting Brock Vandagriff out there. But
and that's all in my desire.
That's what fall's practice is for, is develop guys.
Get a quarterback in there, regardless of the cost, to go win you a title, because I think Georgia fans aren't satisfied with 10 or 11 wins, losing in the SEC championship. Like that bar is not good enough anymore. And you have to surpass that, and maybe you have to make some unpopular decisions along the way. The other thing, though, I say that as like a media guy, I don't know the status of the locker room. I don't know which guys play for who. Every former player I've talked to says when the coaches make a decision like that, there are waves within the locker room about how that affects people differently. And good coaches, and Georgia has a great set of coaches, understand those dynamics and can manage and maneuver that situation well, because these are still 18 to 22-year-olds. And if they start sulking and get their feelings hurt, sometimes that's tough, but sometimes that's like a season killer too. And so I can say this all willy-nilly, like it's like fantasy football. Let me just get the most talented guy in here, but like, it doesn't always work that way when you actually manage people. And so, even me, sometimes I have these little hot takes like that. I need to make sure that I express that too, that the coaches know these personalities and these players and their talents.
Oh, you're right. And I will tell you this, the players love Stetson Bennett. They have since he was a freshman when he walked on. The defense rallies around this kid, not just the offense. The defense loves him. And he's the one that tortures them when he's on the scout team. He could be a little rusty, and maybe that's why he doesn't get the start tomorrow, because Carson's done it. We don't know that. I'm predicting he does. There's no – if you tuned into this to find out exactly who it was going to be, I can't tell you that. I can tell you what I predicted based on kind of what I'm hearing. And now it seems like the rest of I was out on this island by myself, and now it seems like everyone else is backpedaling after they wrote their stories about how Carson Beck's going to be the starter. Now they're all, oh, well, no, wait, Stetson Bennett could be the guy. Like, wow. So you reported both of them? Congratulations. You reported that Georgia's going to have a quarterback on Saturday. Real edgy stuff there. I made my prediction. I have to live or die with it. If I'm wrong tomorrow, then, so be it. But to your point, Dane, if you say, how will this affect the team? I don't think this would hurt to run Stetson Bennett out there, because the team loves this guy. They have for years. They've seen him work. They know he's a consummate professional. Going back to his freshman year when he was the one playing Baker Mayfield when Georgia was going to the Rose Bowl, he was on the scout team, just torching guys. And Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter, guys like Roquan Smith, we would not have been ready for Baker had it not been for Stetson Bennett. They can't live on past laurels, you have to put the best player out there. And what does Kirby Smart says? We play the guy who gives us the best chance to win. Everybody, and we have a ton of people that assume, well, it's obviously Carson Beck, because you said he's number 2 earlier in the week. That clause, that phrase earlier in the week is the part you have to look at. He was the best one early in the week. He may not be at the end of the week. We don't know that. But if you think you know more than Kirby and Todd Monken, and, those guys could all disagree. You could have half the staff that thinks it's Stetson Bennett. Half of them think it's Carson Beck. 3 more guys, 3 GAs think, well, it should be Brock Vandagriff. There's not always a super consensus on this stuff. We don't know any of this. Practice has been closed. No one's seen anything. But if you think that more, having seen 0 practice, have seen 0 passes Carson Beck has thrown in an actual game, 0 from Brock Vandagriff, you're going to second. Again, I don't want to be like, we can't second guess the coaches. I'm just saying we don't freaking know. So how are we going to go around and go, I've seen this conversation thing 3 times. If Kirby starts this, it proves he knows nothing about quarterbacks. We are in the media. We go to practices when we're allowed to. We haven't been allowed to go to one. How the hell if we don't know what the quarterback situation looks like, how does Joe Blow on Twitter know? So,
well, and
Kirby's out there to ruin his career.
Here's a comment from Jay on YouTube. He says, everyone says Beck is the best passer on the team. No offense to you, Jay. I haven't heard a single person say that since he's been there. So, and Roddy, you've got people that are probably closer to the program than I do, just from time covering the team. But I've covered Georgia for a decade now too, both from a local TV standpoint when I was in Columbus, Georgia, but then also more recently working with you here in Athens. And so I haven't heard that from any of the people that I talk to that see him in practice or scrimmages. He's got potential, yeah, but the main thing that I've heard about Carson Beck is that very inconsistent and frankly a turnover risk. And if we know anything about Kirby Smart, if you're a turnover risk, you ain't gonna play.
No, I'm with you 100%. You've got to take care of the ball. Kirby's not going to give a team that's got two veteran quarterbacks the ability to have an extra possession. That's just not his style. It's not going to happen. And I like some of the folks in the comments telling me to do some homework. That's adorable. I mean, we've only broken more news than anybody has. And again, that has nothing to do with it. If Carson Beck rolls out there, fantastic. And I hope he tears it up. I've had people inside the administration, inside the athletic program saying, look, if Carson gets in there, it's his going forward. Wow. I've also had people say, if Carson will never get in there. Wow. I mean, it really reminds me of what Josh Helmholt, he's moved up in the rivals thing, but back when he was the Midwest analyst, Josh Helmholt, when Georgia got Dwan Mathis, he came on our message board on that signing day when Georgia was able to get him away from Ohio State. And he said, here's my take on Dwan Mathis. Boom or bust. Absolute boom or bust. If it clicks for him, he's going to be phenomenal. If it doesn't, he's not going to be very good. The feeling I'm getting about Carson Beck from folks inside the program is it's kind of that same thing. When he's going against the twos, he's lights out. We don't know what he's like going against the ones. Maybe he was lights out, but if he was, I don't think we'd be hearing reports or hearing buzz or hearing anything about Stetson Bennett being the guy. Stetson Bennett was not the one sharing reps on Wednesday.
I think that may be some of what we're seeing from the fan base online right now too, is some deja vu from last season where that quarterback situation was just such a rocky road at the beginning. And it seemed like JT had finally settled the position. And if he's healthy, then he's the starter on the team. I think the difference is, I think it's tough for fans to swallow. How can Carson Beck be told publicly that he's the number 2, and then in a matter of 2 days lose that? Like, what happened there? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I've seen some comments here on YouTube that say that same thing. All we can tell you that the coaches decide that.
Yeah. How long? What's the expiration date on that?
There's a chance that Carson trots out there tomorrow. There's always that chance that a coach makes that decision, just the same way that Faton Bauta I put this on Twitter, right? 2015, Georgia, Florida. There goes, was it 15? I think it was.
I don't know. I remember breaking that news from a golf course. So,
well, Fatone started and it sent shockwaves around the fan base in similar ways, except probably bigger then because it's Georgia, Florida rather than Georgia UAB. All to say, I think that there's some frustration of whoa, why isn't it Beck? Like there's some disappointment in that because fans have been told he's the number 2, and then actions say maybe he's not.
Well, again, he's number 2 on a Tuesday. Does that mean he's number 2 forever? Can you not lose a position? Can someone not come in and take your spot? Do you not have to compete every day for your position? The one thing we did not get was a lot of we had players come out and confirm what we had been hearing, that JT Daniels and Carson Beck split reps. Okay. Did they tell you how well they did? And if they did tell you, would you believe them? So it's like, well, he's the number 2. Does that never change? Have you never seen guys move up and down the depth chart at tackle, guard, center, defensive line, cornerback, star, safety? once coach said it, it's that way forever. Guys can never move down and move up. We didn't get to ask Kirby Wednesday, who's your number 2. We didn't get to ask him Thursday, who's your number 2. We didn't get to ask today, who's your number 2. Although we probably would have asked who's your number 1. But the point being, that's the way it is. So I will come out and say, look, I don't know any of that stuff. I just made a prediction, and based on what I think of Kirby and how he's going to do it, I think it's going to be Stetson Bennett. Maybe, there's some buzz from inside the program. Really hard to get it. There's not a lot of people going into the program, going over there this week. You didn't have the McGill Society folks going in and coming back and giving us reports and stuff like that. Very tough to get news out of that building this week, but we were able to break the news that JT Daniels is out with an oblique, when Carson Beck was getting reps. Some of the players confirmed that they were getting reps, but what we don't know is how well he did. And then I started hearing and putting 2 and 2 together, and I think it's going to be Stetson Bennett. So I put in a prediction. I could be wrong. God knows. I was wrong last week.
Yeah, we both were on that one. Daniel Martin in the chat says, I don't see the harm in starting Beck. If he does bad after a few possessions, take him out, give him a fair shake. That's his opinion. Yeah. I do think that a lot of fans agree with that if it just goes south, do like Georgia did against Arkansas last season when Dwayne Mathis could not get the job done. And then it's Stetson Bennett coming to save the day. The only thing I would tell you is that you don't want to get yourself in too much of a hole against the UAB. Right. Because they are a good team. And I would say they're probably around the caliber that Arkansas was that time last year. Maybe a little better. Yeah, very, very fair thing. Folks, the thing is, when they hear UAB, they think, and 25-point line, like Georgia's going to roll these guys up. So many people are taking the over. I'm like, not taking the over, they're taking Georgia to cover. I'm like, wow, you have a lot more faith in the offense than I do, considering the last 2 games. Maybe I'm just a little pessimistic, but I'm telling you, this is talking to other people who cover these teams, talking to analysts, talking to people in the media that I know. They're like, no, UAB's legit. I'm like, okay. And I remember Georgia struggling with Troy years ago. I'm like, wow, it's a damn good team. So not saying that Georgia's going to struggle tomorrow, but. Well, all right, let me give you a hypothetical. Yeah. Let's say that your prediction comes to be true, Stetson Bennett start, but let's say Georgia's offense rolls, or maybe the defense gets some scores, special team lights it up. Georgia has a 30-point lead in the third quarter, and it's let's get a backup in there time. Is it Carson? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm making sure. No, I mean, hell, maybe. Or do they leave Stetson, or do they think about Vandergriff? I mean, I would assume that that's the case, but like I said, again, I think even more difficult than winning the games. This is where the coaches have to manage, the happiness of that quarterback room. Now, at the end of the day, winning games takes priority over that because that's the job that you have. Oh, yeah, but at the same time, you need to try to keep people happy in what they're doing, so they were going to work hard for you. Well, no, it makes perfect sense. But at the same time, you want to, what you're going to get in Stetson Bennett. So you throw him out there and you hope to get that lead on him. And then you can bring in another guy and let him get blooded, let him get that experience, let him fight and go through all the things, get a better idea of what he does. But ideally, once you have the game in hand, that's when you start developing quarterbacks. You don't start developing quarterbacks before you have the game in hand. That's just a bad formula. Get it under control with the guy that can do it. Then, so you don't dig yourself out of a hole. I mean, special teams, penalties, turnovers, that's the recipe for an upset. You can't control a couple of those with a quarterback, but you can damn sure control the turnovers. So don't send somebody out there who's going to turn the ball over. Get up a couple scores on them, run the ball, then bring it in. And that way now you have 2 good quarterbacks. You've got Stetson Bennett throws and, he's prepped in case you ever need to use him again. But now's a great time to bring in Carson Beck and let him run the offense. Now, if you're up 30-0, are they going to let him throw it? Probably not, but at least they can get some live bullets out there. Hell, to me, if it's a 14-point lead, bring him in, let him. I know your pipe dream, dude. Your mouthwatering player of the week on UGA Sports Live. Get James Cook on a Wildcat and see what happens. I like somebody to say, hey, bring Jordan Davis in the Wildcat. Whoa.
I don't think Jordan wants to run that far. He likes
It'd have to be like a goal line thing, right?
He likes to go about 7 yards and wind up landing on a quarterback.
He's damn good at that, though.
That's as far as he needs to go. He doesn't need to run 30 or break one open down the field.
If he did that, it's only because Jalen Carter scored a touchdown last year, and Jordan needs to one up him.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. All right, tomorrow's gonna be a wild day. I can already tell.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. All right, the questions you want to address over there?
I think it's more shock that I see. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are just discouraged the fact that Stetson Bennett could be in there. I don't know if that's fair or unfair. I'm not going to tell anybody the way that they feel is wrong one way or the other. What I would tell you is that probably shows that Georgia's quarterback room is still not where it needs to be if that's the way that you're feeling now. And I think most people are feeling that about Stetson Bennett. And I think a lot of people in the program, if your prediction comes to be true, means internally they're feeling that way about Carson Beck. And so, we'll find out together. And if you want to find our reactions to who's playing, Coach Donnan and myself, and I believe Brent Rollins will be doing our watch along show right here on this YouTube channel. You can mute the TV. You can watch us mouths agape if one of the quarterbacks that we're not expecting trots out there. We'll all find out together, because there's one thing that we've learned, Roddy, is that Kirby Smart doesn't like to let the information get out like this.
No, he doesn't. And we break more news than anybody, and it's not easy. It used to be a hell of a lot easier, but he doesn't like to let it out, and it's tough because you have to rely on not what your eyes saw, but what someone else saw or what someone else heard. And each time you add in a link between what really happened and what you're reporting, when it can't be you directly observing it, now you've put another person there. It's like a game of telephone. Things can change up, because now you get their impression of it and that you're reporting, or their remembrance of it, and it gets really tough. Alec Burke says, Roddy, how much you're enjoying this? I don't enjoy this crap at all. It's 8 o'clock on a Friday. I've spent the last 2 days. We broke all this news while I was on the road. I was down in St. Mary's in Valdosta, and I'm driving down the road trying to keep up with stuff on Twitter. I'm surprised I'm not dead, but reaching out to my staff going, what have you guys heard? They were telling me what they heard. Dash is writing stories. We've been all over the place with this stuff. It's 8 o'clock on a Friday. I'd much rather be knocking back some rum here and smoking a cigar and not dealing with this, but I thought it might be a good idea to get on there and say, hey folks, this is what we're hearing. I'm not an attention seeker. All I want is for our subscribers to be happy and our advertisers to be happy when they give us money to pay all our staffers. I want to make payroll, but we don't do it through clickbait, because
I want you to make payroll too.
Exactly. I just want to make payroll. That's my only goal, man. But again, we don't do it through clickbait. So there's no value for us to come up with some wild bullshit that's just going to get a lot of clicks. Everybody's like, oh, Roddy's doing this to stir the pot. Stirring the pot doesn't do me. I don't make any money on that. And if I'm really bad at my job and I put out stuff there that's stupid, we'll lose subscribers. So
which means you'll physically lose money out of it.
Death,
Well, and look, the quarterback thing, and that's the title of this that we've talked about for damn near an hour. That's going to get a lot of play tomorrow, regardless of what happens, because JT is the starting quarterback. He's not able to go. Then what do you do? There's a couple other spots you need to realize on this team that need to get worked out tomorrow. Offensive line, replacing what Tate Ratledge had there, because we've heard multiple things here, and it's all going to center around where does Jamari Salyer play, and then where is Warren Erickson on the field, because a lot of times they don't like to have the two best centers out there at the same time in case one of those guys gets hurt. All of a sudden, you're one injury away from having a third string center with no experience, right. Or having to move Jamari into there, which is definitely not his best position. He's good at it. He can play anywhere on the line. So watch the offensive line and hope that they all stay healthy in this game, because it's like you said, it's going to be physical in the trenches. UAB has a big defensive line. One of the guys that I mentioned in my prediction was at Fish McWilliams. He's a little stump out there, but he's a big dude. He's just short. And then if you want to look at other positions, Georgia still has so much to prove at wide receiver. And maybe that gets complicated with whatever the quarterback thing is going on. But I thought that was the position.
That's a great point.
That's the position of need if you're looking at the Clemson game, both with downfield blocking that would open up things for the running backs, but then also just like, get open quickly. Like Georgia still doesn't have those little like 3 or 4 yard routes that turn into 60-yard gains. That's what Alabama does so well.
No, you hit the nail on the head. Another, again, consideration the coaches have to have is you're going to go out there without Kyrus Jackson. You're going out there without Arik Gilbert. You're going out there without Darnell Washington. You without George Pickens. You're without Dom Blaylock. You're running Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, freshman, Jermaine Burton, Marcus Rosemary-Jack Saint. Again, good guys, but I think Georgia will be a lot more willing to say, hey, let's just throw any quarterback out there, because as long as you can get it anywhere in the vicinity of George Pickens, you'll be okay. If you can throw it high, you can get it to Darnell Washington, and Kyrus is going to get open, working that slot position. When he had 10 catches against Auburn, you'd feel a lot better about your quarterback knowing that he has all the first thing was the first scrimmage, I think, or second scrimmage, when we asked Kirby Smart about JT Daniels in the scrimmage. He goes, well, he's not playing with a full deck, which to me has always meant that somebody was kind of crazy, but he meant he's playing without all these offensive weapons. That is, if you don't have all those guys out there doing helping you out, maybe you want a little more experience out there, or maybe you want the big arm.
So if you have a very young set of skill players, A.D. Mitchell, Brock Bowers, guys in their second college football games. Jermaine Burton's experienced, but he also didn't practice half a fall camp because of injury. So he's trying to get back into the speed of things. Do you want to have that be a first-time start against a tough team for a quarterback? Because one thing that we've heard from Kirby Smart is one of the things at quarterback is helping other guys get where they need to be, have them in the right spot, so you don't have procedure penalties, so you don't have holding penalties because a guy didn't line up the right way, so you don't have to call a timeout because you were about to have a delay a game, or you were about to have too many guys on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
As much as anything, if it's even close with Beck and Bennett, that's probably where Bennett has an edge.
No, I agree 100%, because he's been through it. This is not a guy who's playing in front of 93,000 fans for his first time. I'll give a quick shout out to Jermaine King and Nicholas Moss, Josh Hurt, Tennille Calvino, Dirty South Dogs, Jeff Gooch, Daniel Martin.
Uncle Lou.
Is Uncle Lou in there?
Yeah, Uncle Lou's in there.
Holy, that's the man. Centerpoint Media, thanks for joining there. Levi Rushing says, saying Bennett might start as clickbait. How the hell is that clickbait? We don't get paid for clicks, dumbass.
Hey, if it's clickbait, then we have a poor business model. That's all I'll tell you.
Yeah, we're doing something wrong. How do I not get money for these clicks? What do I need an AdSense account? I don't get it, but it's what it is. I did want to. There's a lot of talk about Brock Vandegrift. Jeff Gooch says Brock Vandegrift's the best talented quarterback we have. Throw him out there and let that bad child throw the rock.
I agree.
If you had a much simpler offense, that might actually be a possibility, but it's a really complicated offense right now. Does it need to be that complicated? People can argue that. I don't get into the stuff like that, but I think some of the stuff that you see in Stetson Bennett, you will see in Brock Vandegrift, that willingness to run, willingness to throw his body into it, great arm, good accuracy, knowing what to do. You're going to have that in Brock, but you're going to have it in a much bigger quarterback.
He also has great hair. He
does have great hair.
And it's gotten better. It's gotten better since Prince to UGA. Yeah. That's important to me. You look at Trevor Lawrence. The hair was some of the power.
Yeah, but worry if they ever have to cut it. Got the Samson thing going on there. So that's got to be one. Nicholas Moss says you got to have elite level wide receivers to play. Got to have elite level wide receivers play to have an elite passing game. Yes. Do you have any of those alpha dogs like you have in George Pickens? No. And I'm not trying to crap on the other guys. I'm just saying Alabama had 2 of them last year, and that's before you even get to Mitchie. So you had, Jalen Waddle. Waddle goes out. Devonta Smith goes on to win the bloody Heisman. You had George Pickens and you lose him. You don't have two of those guys. And the one guy you have is not out there. So if you want to have these crazy passing games, you saw what Clemson was able to do. They said, with your wide receivers, we're going to play two high safeties and get our pass rush. We don't think you're going to be able to run it on us. We're going to affect your quarterback by, getting to him. And Georgia had to get rid of it fast. You couldn't develop that. But if you had a little bit more time and you had a George Pickens, well, hell, you still throw it out there against two high safeties. You don't care because he's going to go get it. I don't think you have that in the other guys yet. I don't know that they'll develop into that. I don't want to, say that they'll never be that. But that's why we cover recruiting. That's why Georgia's so going after Shaz Preston and they're going after Luther Burden. There are some guys who just walk off the field or walk into the stadium and you're like, that guy's different. Brock Bowers might be that difference. He that's the guy that we've been hearing about.
I love that story from Channing Tindall where he said, we're running gassers in the summer. And this kid, we're like, who's this guy? I don't even know. And then he goes and beats some of the senior linebackers and gassers.
Yeah.
To quickly recap to what we've kind of said in this video so far.
Do the good media thing.
Yeah, this is a reset, as they used to say in radio. I didn't do a whole lot of
reset. That's what I never do.
Yeah. So Georgia's playing UAB tomorrow, Sanford Stadium, 3:30 kick. First home game of the season. First time in damn near 2 years there's been a full stadium in Sanford Stadium. So people have ascended on Athens right now, and there's a lot of fever pitch excitement just to see what that looks like. JT Daniels this week, oblique injury. When it happened, I don't know, but UGA Sports broke the news. JT Daniels likely not to play.
That happened in the game, but we don't know when, at what part of the game.
That's what I meant. And so it would be very uncomfortable for him to throw a football. Not a catastrophic injury. He might be able to play next week. We'll see, but probably wisest.
He was throwing this week. He just wasn't throwing that much.
Probably wisest. It seems that way from Georgia coaches to sit him out and prepare him for the SEC slate that is to come. If he can be healthy for that. So though that leaves what most presume to be the number 2 quarterback in Carson Beck, because those words came out of Kirby Smart's mouth earlier this week that Carson Beck is the number 2 quarterback. Your prediction on UGAsports.com today in your 3-2-1 report, which comes out every Friday during the season on UGAsports.com, sometimes in the off season too, but definitely during the season. It is a fan favorite, or if it's news that people don't like, either way, people look forward to reading the 3-2-1 report over at UGAsports.com. Your prediction was that Stetson Bennett will start instead of Carson Beck in tomorrow's game against UAB. And since then, the fan base has not received that idea very well for the most part. There are some Stetson supporters for sure that see what value there is there. But overall, that seems to be a pretty controversial decision among Georgia fans. And we'll find out tomorrow if that prediction comes true, because most of the time when you come up with information based on the people you talk to and the resources you have, Roddy, I'd say you're right. But there's a damn good chance that you're wrong too. And if that's the case, then you never know. That happened.
Here's the thing. My prediction is going into this game, Stetson Bennett gets to start. Now, what happens if Todd Monken wakes up tomorrow and goes, no, screw that? I mean, all it takes is a 2-second phone call and everything changes. So
and it sounds like that probably is what happened already once this week.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was told way up the food chain, JT's Daniel's going to play. He's going to play. I'm like, well, okay. And I told everybody, look, this is what I'm told by great sources. He's going to be fine. And then they said, unless something happens. I'm like, yeah, okay. Unless something happens, you put it on there. And this is Georgia, where something happens all the bloody time. I pointed out in my column, you've had 3 Georgia football players in one calendar year hit by cars. You had 2 potential starters break bones in their feet, the 5th metatarsal bone in their foot on the same day. You've had phantom holding calls, phantom targeting calls, phantom fumble calls, phantom offsides calls.
Liz Frank injury.
The what?
The
Liz Frank injury. I mean, if there's something weird that can happen to Georgia players, it does. And so, true to form, your quarterback is supposed to be fine. They decide maybe he's not ready to play. Let's hold him out, precautionary reasons for Saturday. Now, of course, everybody wants to see him see Carson Beck come in there. I'm like, if I told you last year for all the stuff that we were hearing that Carson Beck was going to get in, I would have guaranteed a loss. I'm like, boy, there were people all in the program that were really down on the kid, but he's turned it around. They love it.
There were times last year that I was told, I'm surprised this guy was a take in recruiting at Georgia based on what we've seen.
Same. They said I was told wasted scholarship. Now I'm told if he gets the job, JT may never get back in there. I'm like, okay. But then I've also heard this kid should never play at Georgia. That was recent. It's just.
And I think that is, as much as anything, inconsistency in his play and based on what people see win, because he hasn't won over enough people frequently enough to be the number 2 quarterback all the time.
I'll put it to you this way. Kirby Smart will take lesser production consistently than feast or famine.
And that's proven through his entire head coaching career.
And I'm just saying, if he's like, I know this kid can run this play and here's what his physical capabilities are. I can coach around that, because every time I plug in this play or this formation or this option or this scheme, this is what this kid's going to give me. Let me coach around it. But if you put a guy in there and then on one play, he absolutely nails it, and then on the next play, he bombs, and you're like, well, shit, I don't know what to call, because I don't know which quarterback I'm going to get each snap. You can take a guy and so people say, well, he's the more talented quarterback. Yeah, but if he doesn't do it every play, you're not going to put him out there. So
then it goes back to what are your goals? Do you want to develop that more talented quarterback that maybe can raise your ceiling as a program, take you to that promised land? Or do you want to make sure that you're beating UAB?
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's probably the latter.
Yeah. Put your guy out there, win or at least be up against a team that's going to fight like hell, get up on them, then work on your future quarterbacks. That's just my thing. Uncle Lou says, if Kirby touches the hot stove for the 100th time when it comes to QB decisions, I'm going to rearrange my mom's basement.
Now, I will say this. If we get later in the season, and I mean, this is so pessimistic, so I don't even want to say it this way, and I don't think this will happen at all because Georgia's schedule is so favorable and Georgia's so talented in so many other areas. But if Georgia finds itself out of the playoff picture, then you definitely have to play whatever quarterback has the most potential in the long run. We're not there right now.
Hey, if they find themselves out of the playoff contention midway through, or, towards the end of it, I'll go to Uncle Lou's house and help him rearrange it. I'll burn the house down if he needs it.
I'll be calling for Brock for sure. Then I'm kind of doing it now.
But no, that brings up what Araj. Araj has been one of our members for, I think, since we were on Cups with Strings back in the old days. He says, well, we see 3 UGA quarterbacks tomorrow. I don't see why not. If you do what you're supposed to do, and again, I keep saying this is a great team, but if Georgia it does what it's capable of, and let's say you have a 3-score lead, why not give each one of them a little bit of taste?
The only reason not to is if you were completely sold that you're not doing much of Beck this year, that you want to save a red shirt.
Yeah.
If you don't want this to count toward his 4 games he can play in, that's the only reason I can fathom.
I think that's history, but I think you bring him out there just to, again, let him get used to the pace of the game. Let him take live bullets. Let him get that experience. And also you don't expect him to play against the Floridas and the Auburns and those teams of the world. So this would be a game that, use one of the 4. And I always say it's one of those situations where when a guy, even a 5-star guy, and I deal with this with some frequency, a guy walks out onto the field for the kneel down. It's the last drive, and they put the 3rd string in, and it can be a 5-star guy. He gets out there at the tackle spot, and they basically take a knee. I get a text, after the game, hey, did you get any pictures of me? I got a picture of you. Here you go. Yeah. But again, it's that the first time you walk out on the field as a collegiate player, even if everyone expects you to be a 1st-round draft pick, you're like, wow, I made it. And you're thinking about all the people watching you. You're not thinking about, hey, I'm going to get SEC player of the week for my position. You're like, wow, and you get out there and your heart's just pounding in your chest, and you catch a punt and you run it back or whatever. It's baby steps. The first time you dress out, you get all your pictures. Second time you walk you do the dog walk, you're used to that. Then you get on the field the first time. You need all those little things to step up. And so to me, if you can get as many guys onto the field, so when they go on the field against a bigger team or a better team, let's say you hit the field against Auburn on the road, it's not the first time you've been in a college football game. Maybe it's only the second time, but at least you've done that, So I'm like, look, get as many guys out there as possible. And if you only get to put Carson Beck out there for 2 series and then you bring in Brock Vandagriff to just hand the ball off because you're up by a lot and you're not going to throw it, well, at least he's been out there and he's done it. It's not the first time he's taken a center snap in front of 94,000 people. So will we see 3 quarterbacks? Hell, I would. That's just me.
That means it's a good game for Georgia. If you did, I'll put it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think we've gone on for over an hour, so I think that people got their money's worth since they didn't pay us.
Yeah, and I don't pay you for nothing. So
if you want to do us a favor for bringing you this content, join our UGA Sports Watch Along show tomorrow. Have it on your second screen. You can hear Jim Donnan call out plays before they happen. It's a great time. Brent Rollins, myself, Jim Donnan will be watching the game. We'll sync it up so you can make sure that wherever you're watching, you can time it up with your TV and hear us instead of the announcers. It will be right here on this YouTube channel, probably about 15 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes if I get the slideshow going beforehand, before the kick of the game. And then we'll all find out who's the starting quarterback together.
Yeah, that works for me.
You want to wrap it up there, good sir?
Just say, hey, well, I was going to wrap it up with all that stuff, but I never know how to tell people to give us reviews and do all that stuff.
I can do that part if you want me to.
Yeah, I got really bad stuff, but I do want to say, hey, I really appreciate everybody tuning in on a Saturday, Friday. Maybe we do this every once in a while, but I'm on everyone next time to show me what they're drinking. I'm knocking back a little Virago here, so beer going.
All right. Well, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not, and then make sure you get it set up where you can get notifications when we do go live. We have multiple shows per week on this channel. We've really boosted our content really in the couple years leading up to this, but especially for this football season. It's a fun time around Georgia, and the energy that we're seeing, positive and negative, tells you the passion that there is for Georgia football and how excited that people are to have it back. In particular, having Sanford Stadium filled with almost 93,000 people. It's going to be a special scene in Athens tomorrow. And so don't get so focused on the quarterback situation that you don't take time to realize, oh yeah, that's what this is like. Because it's been a while.
Football's back, baby. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone for watching. For Riding the Ballsy, I'm Dane Young. We'll be back with tons of content on UGAsports.com tomorrow, and check out what we're doing on our podcast and YouTube feeds. Thanks for watching us. Have a good night.
Take care.